Welcome. Spring season is over, so let's talk about it. I will go over all the shows that I watched. So we'll start with Ejirani Nagatoro-san. This is a simplistic romantic comedy that uses ridiculous but subtle sexual humor. It runs episodically through a series of skits, so the plot does not progress very much in this first season. It revolves around Senpai, a very awkward kid who gets bullied by Nagatoro, who finds pleasure in it. But at the same time, she starts to fall in love with this boy because of his tendency to freak out and act just so so spaz and whatnot. On the way, Nagatoro has friends. She has Gamo, who knows what's going on and schemes against them for her own amusement. Yoshi, who serves no real purpose other than to be comic relief, which is alright. Sakura, who comes out pretty late in the series, and I feel like she's been objected to very dark implications, which is hilarious. And then you have the president, who, despite the president having the wildest proportions, I like her very dramatic and passionate personality. And the music is great. It fits really well with the goofiness of the series. Amazing opening, very wholesome ending. By the end, it gets kind of wholesome towards the end. It gives you a nice, comfortable, satisfied feeling before it all ends. It's based off a manga, but the anime adapts it completely out of place. So the episodes are randomly, they're essentially random parts of the anime. So it doesn't really come out or play out in order. But as a romantic comedy, it's okay. I wouldn't put it anywhere near the level like Karikano, but I was pretty pleased with this one. To Your Eternity. This one is well on its way towards being anime of the year. It's based upon making you cry. That's really what this anime is about. It's about making you cry. It's about this orb that got raised by Oberstein, or whatever he's called. And this orb begins life as a rock, and it takes on the form of those that die near it. And it slowly learns to become human. So think like Gene Shaft or Violet Evergarden or Vivi. And along the way, Fushi, which is the name that the orb essentially gets, meets people during its existence that teach you how to become more human. For example, you have Marsh, who becomes the motherly figure and teaches Fushi the value of that. You have the old woman that teaches him reading, writing. You have Gugu, who becomes like a brother to Fushi. But the thing about this anime is that it kills off these characters. It builds them up. It gets you attached to them, and then it kills them off. It did it with the boy in the first episode and the dog. And it does it with Marsh. When it did it with Marsh, I felt that this anime was being too predictable. I felt that, what is the point of trying to get attached to these characters if they're gonna just kill them off right away? So then Gugu comes along, and I thought, and Gugu they kept him for a while, and so I thought that they were gonna keep him. And so I got attached to Gugu's character. I actually enjoyed his interactions, his own personal story of liking Reen and trying to overcome what happened to him in his accident, where his face got damaged and he has to overcome being called a monster and whatnot. And then in the last episode of the first core, he dies, and that threw me off because I thought they were gonna keep him alive. And when he died, and he went to the so-called afterlife, and he meets with Fushi and the booze man and the old woman, and he can't touch them, he can't interact with them, and he just sort of tries to hug them. That was the pinnacle. That was the best part of the show so far. So that's the first core. It's still gonna run 20 episodes long. So I'm looking forward to how To Your Eternity plays out next. But I really hope that it doesn't end up falling apart. I really hope that it doesn't. 86. 86 is a it's a wannabe Code Geass, or it's like a wannabe Legend of the Galactic Heroes. It revolves around this civilization that sees these people from the 80, which they call the 86, as inferior, and they use them as disposable pawns in a war against the Legion, which is this mysterious, morbid type of civilization that is made up of robots of deceased soldiers that are trying to kill the main character Milaz's civilization. And you can tell the obvious homage to Legend of the Galactic Heroes with the dates being constantly told to you, the whole discrimination thing. So you know this anime is borrowing a lot. Sawano makes the music. I think Sawano carries this because Sawano has made very good music for this one, especially the ending. This is one of the best endings. The first couple of episodes are pretty boring. The main character, Milaz, she's part of the military that is exploiting the 86, and she wants to help them. And her idea of helping them is to be nice to them, to praise them, to act like a supportive mother. And they tell her, like, no, you're part of the same administration that is part of the problem. You're not doing anything to really save us. You're just a part of the problem. So the first 6 episodes are just tough to get through. They're very slow. They're boring. They're annoying. Once you get to episode 7, this turns around and it gets really good. And it has the second season confirmed, which will happen, I think, in the fall. So the second half of this first core redeems it. And no, I don't consider it amazing or anything, but it started off really bad and it got alright towards the end. Vivi Fluoride song. This is Gene Chef put together with Violet Evergarden, put together with Macross, and you sprinkle some time travel on it. Yeah, this anime, for an original, it sure does borrow a lot from other anime. It revolves around Vivi and Matsumoto. In this series, the AI eventually come to become so advanced that they see humans as inferior, and then one day decide to wipe them out. And one scientist creates an AI and sends it to the past to get another AI called Vivi. And because Vivi has something about her that makes her unique and essential towards this mission, this scientist sends Matsumoto to the past to team up with Vivi and to alter the timeline to prevent the AI disaster. But little did he know that the Archive, the antagonist AI group, they knew this. And no matter what Matsumoto and Vivi did to change the future, the Archive would still modify history. So that at the end, the AI genocide would still play out. And so the entire beginning, most of this series was essentially pointless for Vivi and Matsumoto because they failed at the end. And so they had to go back in time again to sort of right the wrong. And Vivi uses her song to kind of move the robots, which is part of the plan to infect them, to shut them all off. And then Vivi ends up dying. Matsumoto ends up dying very anticlimactically. I don't know why he didn't have any. I don't know why they didn't give me any lines towards the end. It was weird seeing him just sacrifice himself without saying anything. Now at the end, you get this ending that Vivi is still alive, but it's some other version of her. It's not the one that we all. It's not the one that the viewer came to know. Matsumoto's still there because I don't know. I guess he had a backup somewhere. But this anime, it has very high production values. I read the staff behind this anime. They have some really good names. So yeah, some really good music. I prefer the instrumentals to the vocals, sadly so. It has really good animation, some really well animated parts. Though at times Vivi has very ugly character designs. And this is written probably by the guy that did ReZero, which is an anime I don't know anything about. So Vivi's okay. At the end, I'll go back and I'll tell you which ones I recommend. If I see isekai, I just skip it. I might do Fruits Basket later. I've heard so many good things about it, so you probably see me do Fruits Basket eventually. But until then, I have no opinion. Megalobox 2, I've heard really good things about too. I might watch this one eventually. Shadow House. Shadow House based on a manga, but it's a mystery, but it starts off way too slow. The beginning of the series is little girls cleaning houses for 15 minutes, and I could not stand that at all. It's extremely slow paced to the point where it's almost unbearable. However, it gets better halfway through, and then all of a sudden you just completely just overwhelmed with what the Shadow House is really about, because this anime is about these living dolls who are serving these shadows, and there's a hierarchy, and at the very top of the Shadow House there is a group of adults who are shadows, or it's implied they're both human and shadow, and they're controlling the town for their own sense of superiority and control. And this anime will begin to unravel that the Shadow House is using these suit liquids to control villagers from nearby, to take their kids, to turn them into living dolls to serve their kind, which is the shadows. And the shadows are these small kind of weird beings that grow up and take on human forms, and they've essentially enslaved humanity. If you want to make it more blunt and simpler, and they use the suit to control the living dolls to make them completely submissive and obedient to the shadows. And the higher ups at the same time are doing this thing with the younger shadows to kind of pick the best among the crop and discard and kill off the rest. And what happens is, one of the living dolls happens to be Emeliko, a doll that questions things, but it's accidental. She's accidentally starting or sowing the seeds of rebellion. And she inspires her shadow, Kate, to see this too. And though the plan kind of keeps going, and Emeliko and the rest drink that tea and they get brainwashed, the young shadow, Kate, was awoken, or she became conscious of it all because of Emeliko. So she starts this rebellion where she snaps her living doll, or Emeliko, out of it, and starts to organize the young shadows against the hierarchy and the other young shadows, and end up snapping all their living dolls out of their own brainwashing, and now they're trying to see how they can stop the Shadow House. And so it really gets better halfway through, but the first beginning is painful to get through. And this one actually ends this week, because this one ran on a very unique time. So I will be talking more about Shadow House at the end of the week. Mars Red. Mars Red is an anime you have to watch in a very specific order and exclude a lot of its certain episodes. So Mars Red is a military anime based on vampires that is adapted from a stage play. Episode 1 and the first and last episodes are the only ones to really take advantage of the whole stage play gimmick, which is sad because I would have liked every episode to do something like this. In the first episode, and by the way, Mars Red had one of the best first episodes, where Maeda has this lover called Misaki, and they meet out of misfortune, and it ends in a tragedy. But the first episode is just really well done, and then from there the quality just drops. There are some episodes that were good, like Yamagami, who has the episode with his wife, and then the episode where he dies. Those are pretty good. The flashback that takes place before episode 1 was also done very well. The problem is that they decide to make Maeda a vampire, but he ends up going sort of insane and loses his character, and they decide to push the show onto Kurusu, who was a character who halfway through was very bland and boring, and so it's kind of a drag to get through that. But fortunately, when you get to the final episode, it wraps everything up nicely, and it brings back that high quality of episode 1. and the ending itself pulls Mars Red out of this hole and makes it a decent show. So this one is very underrated. Odd Taxi, anime of the season. This one has the smartest dialogue amongst all spring season. It explores very unique themes like gacha. This game critiques gacha to no end, and I love it. It has very memorable characters, an extremely smart story that all blends in and comes together at the end. It's about Orokawa, a walrus who. So the thing about them all being animals is that Orokawa, as a child, was actually a human, but he had an accident where he almost drowned, and it gave him brain damage to the point that he got a very special condition where, because he had an obsession with animals as a kid, he started seeing everybody as animals. So on the very final episode, they reveal what everybody actually looks like, and it's all because the viewers saw the show through Orokawa's eyes, and that was the plot twist. Other than that, it's a mystery about a murder and Yakuza, Japanese crime organization. And at the very, very end, there's a huge plot twist with mystery kiss, where the actual killer was the third member, the one that liked the fried chicken that nobody ever suspected. She was the killer all along. And if you read if you listen to the audio dramas, she kills more people. She kills Orokawa's landlord, and then at the very end of this series, it's implied that she is about to kill Orokawa. So this anime was very well done, and the staff, I think this is their first work, and it's just, I hope it's not like a one-hit wonder or like a lucky first start. But Odd Taxi is my favorite of the spring season. Absolutely love it. Great music. I love the music. Yano was a very unique antagonist. His raps were very well done. ssss.dynazenon. This is a mecha anime, but what makes it shine is the comedy. The comedy and the very natural dialogue between the characters. Because Gama is this man who resurrected from being dead 5,000 years ago, and he assembles this team of very awkward people. And the show does a very good job of using this awkwardness to create very unique types of dialogue that are funny and just overall very natural. It is a sequel to Gridman, so you do see some characters from Gridman in it. The fights themselves are alright. The most unique one was episode 10, where they fight the kaiju that makes everybody go back to the past. That was, in my opinion, one of the best episodes of the spring season. But the CGI fights themselves are not that good. It's very cartoony and goofy, like when the kaiju and the mechas are fighting in the city, and they knock over the buildings. The buildings fly around like bricks. I cannot take it seriously. The music is by Sugasu, who did Bleach, the music for Bleach, Evangelion, Karakano. The music is alright. It's very enjoyable. And they already announced a continuation project, which is Grimmen and Dynazenon. So I guess we could expect maybe more Grimmen characters. Not exactly sure. And the romance between Yume and Yomogi was very cute. And I like how bizarre it was. Like we got, like the viewers got the churro scene, which was iconic. And just the weird awkward pauses like in the bus. And then we have the Neat. He gets his character development. But supposedly the antagonists, the eugenicists, they were pretty useless antagonists, because when they would fight the protagonist and they'd lose, they just say amongst themselves, oh well, we'll win next time. So it was they're very anticlimactic as antagonists. But overall, it was very good. Now, Jiran, the Prince of the Snow and Blood, is, in my opinion, the worst one that I watch of the spring season. But despite it being really bad, it's a wild ride to watch, because it has extremely wild plot twist, even though many times they don't even make sense. It takes place in old Japan, so if you're into history, you would appreciate that. But it's your bland, boring, generic revenge story that ends on episode 5. So then the viewer does not know where the story is going anymore, because the whole revenge thing, they assumed it was going to be part of the whole first score, or the whole season. From there, it becomes a story of Sawa trying to find meaning in her life, and how she ends up feeling like she has no purpose and depressed, and she tries to bond with Asahi, which is a little girl whose parents she killed, but they become friends anyways, and it's this anime, this series is just a mess. So then you have the character. What was the character's name? The one that was you thought it was a man, but then it was a woman towards the end. Tsukishimo, I think. That could have been a great character, and they end up making her this really badly drawn monster that gets killed off anticlimactically, and they ruin her character. And then you have the drunk one, which was a really cool character. I like the character, but when she fought Sawa, the fight was just boring and very anticlimactic. Of course, she comes back to stab Sawa in the back. The only character that really seemed to really mean anything was the leader of the organization. I forgot his name. I might as well just check it out. That's how forgettable this one is. Kuzuhara. He is very boring through the first half of the show. He's this very serious character with no backstory, and because there's no context, he seems like a cardboard cutout character with no emotions, no real relevance to the show. But he gets this one episode where they give him a backstory that makes him much more respectable, and he's actually the strongest character in this series. And he ends up fighting Sawa's fight for her. And we don't get a happy ending here because Sawa gets reunited with Asahi, but she gets stabbed in the back by the drunk one. And she, at the end of the series, she just dies. And then at the very end, Asahi grows up, and she had gotten stabbed previously, and they had used Sawa's blood to heal her, and so she gained Sawa's powers because of that. And that's how she had the bird and the powers. And then you had the blonde woman, Hana. Her whip is essentially Looney Tunes tier. The way it works is, I mean, when they have the meetings at the headquarters, there's a terrible jazz song that plays. I just start laughing. I cannot take it seriously. Yeah, this is an anime that I probably would have wanted to drop to watch something else. Regardless of that, though, it was a wild ride, and I have no regrets watching it. Godzilla SP is your typical story of adapting Godzilla. There's a lot of science here, so if you like science or physics, you can appreciate this one more. If you don't, it's still a matter of having fun putting together the puzzles and the mystery. I mean, the science is above me, but I still gave it a shot. The fights are alright, the CGI is alright. Godzilla doesn't really do much until the end. That's really how he's always been, though. And you get other classic monsters from the Godzilla franchise, like you get Jaguar. You get like a little Mothra reveal at the end. And overall, it's very enjoyable. I really enjoy the opening. It's about Yun and Mei, two prodigies who are trying to figure out the mystery of these monsters showing up around the red mist that revolves a skeleton and a really, really old folk song. And Yoon has developed this very advanced AI because this takes place in the future compared to our modern time. And these AI are the key towards beating the robots, and it involves very complicated matters like time travel and other things. But overall, it's an enjoyable show. It screams season 2 though, because the series builds up the catastrophe towards a climax at the end, and from there it just screams season 2. Make us a season 2. Make us a season 2. But if the viewer did get a season 2, it would not be anywhere in the near future. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. It had an extremely satisfying end. Moving along. Blue Reflection Ray. This is a game adaptation that has nothing to do with the game's story for the most part. It's about these girls that become reflectors, and they end up becoming the enemies of another group of reflectors who have an opinion about feelings, because this anime is all about feelings. The anime is asking the viewer Should humans have feelings or should they not have feelings? And the characters argue that if you have feelings, the emotions bring you down, they'll make you depressed, they'll get in the way, and it's better just to get rid of your feelings and get rid of these sad emotions that can hold you back. But the other effectors, like Hirahara and them, they believe that humans need feelings to be able to function, to be able to grow, to be able to understand themselves and each other, to be able to bond. And it becomes pretty obvious later on that humans do need feelings, according to the show, because the girls that get their feelings taken away become suicidal. So, as a result of that. But the story is starting to get better. On the last episode, episode 12, it was a very, very good way to end the first score. And you can tell when an anime is gonna go when an anime is gonna go all out, because instead of having the opening, they'll just go straight to the episode and just play the song in the background. And they did that with the ending too. So you can tell that they're gonna go into high gear for the last episode for the first score, and it ended on a high note. But a lot of people do not like this because it's extremely slow paced during the beginning. But it's a fairly good series, and I'm looking forward to see the second core and how it ends. Also, Ura is the one that makes this the most interesting because she is this refractor that is very perverted and always like being touching and flirting with the other girls. It makes it amusing. Huh? Am I done already? I know I'm missing one. I gotta get to for sure. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I watched 11 of them. 12 if we add one more, because it ran during the spring season. Batgirl is directed by Goro Taniguchi, who is the creator of Code Geass, and is written by, what's his name, Nakashima, who wrote Gurren Lagann. So that gives you a huge hint of what to expect. Massive plot twists, back and forth. It was a wild ride. It's a mecha show. It was very enjoyable. If you can tolerate the kind of slow first half of it, it becomes just puts you on the edge of your seat. It's a decent story, but it does that where it leaves it at a cliffhanger when it most likely will not get a continuation. But Batgirl was very enjoyable show. Shubi is pretty much Goro Taniguchi's next Lelouch type character, the Justice Plan type character. I really liked how they pretended to kill him off. Admiral Bit, he had some of the best character development, from a scared coward to a respectable soldier. Batgirl was an idiot, essentially. Atlee and Elsha, their only purpose is to sell toys. In the series, they're pretty useless characters. Zetsu was a great antagonist, ends up joining the protagonist. In fact, he's the reason why Ling Ling falls into chaos, because he has so much power that it upset the order and caused their world to sort of be deserve destruction. Fiona, of course, is the Yuffie of Batgirl. But overall, it was a very great series. I enjoyed it. Now, if I was to recommend to you what to watch, I would recommend for you to watch. And though I did do spoilers, this is kind of useless, but at least you'll know what I would recommend. I recommend Odd Taxi. I recommend Vivi, Florida's song. Into Eternity. That'll be my top 3. with Batgirl very close behind with Nagatoro. But that's the spring season. I've already started summer season. I'm watching Sunny Boy, Peach Boy, Scarlet Nexus. I'm gonna pick up a few later. But that's spring season. It was a good ride. I enjoyed it. The highlight of the spring season was when it was actually, I think it was this week. Yeah, it was this week. It was on Monday when Mars Red and Autotaxi ended, and To Your Eternity ended the first core. That was an amazing day for those three shows. Did really well that day. I'm proud of them. Yeah, I would be very close to recommending Mars Red, but you have to watch it in a very certain order because half the episodes are useless, which is what holds it back. So that's the spring season. Thank you for listening.